Today we are learning about the risks of mold in your home and some things that you can look out for. So thank you, Sharon Fine, for coming in today. She's with Restoration One, Chicago Northshore.
That's right.
So thanks for coming in, I appreciate it.
My pleasure, happy to be here.
So what kind of symptoms should a homeowner look out for that could be attributed to mold?
I would say the most prominent one would be maybe shortness of breath, headaches, vision issues, tremors, and memory loss. Those are the key components that really affect people who are exposed to mold.
So if you have those symptoms, that could be caused by a lot of different things. How do you know to go and get those things checked out?
I would say that what's important is take a look at your environment and make sure that you're not seeing water damage, mold. Mold already is a step beyond, but you want to keep your eyes open and be cognizant of how you're feeling in the environment you're in.
Are you recommending a mold test for every home, or how do you know that there's a health concern?
I would not recommend necessarily a mold test for every home.
Okay.
Only if there's something there that is a red flag, which would be any kind of markings on the walls, the drywall, wet carpeting, dripping, anything where you're suspecting that you're seeing any mold. It's better to be safe than sorry and find that out and address it immediately.
And mold isn't always black, it could be white on the rafters or...
Exactly.
So what other kinds of mold type things do you see?
Well, you see gray, you see white, you see yellow. Black is, the one that's the most predominant that you can see. But I think it's mostly being really aware of your surroundings. And if you're in your home and you feel it's safe, great, but keep looking, because it can happen in an instant that a pipe breaks or something starts leaking, and time is not your friend.
Are there certain kinds of molds that cause problems more than others?
Not really that I know of. I think mold basically is mold. And so that's really the key, is just be very observant of of your surroundings, not only where you live, but where you work and any place that you spend time at.
So would you necessarily notice can there be old mold versus an active mold situation, or is it mold is mold?
Well, mold is mold. There can be old mold, but again, that's indicative of something in the environment, and regardless, it's better to be safe than sorry. The sooner you address it, the less apt you are to have the side effects that it can bring.
And then if, let's say for example, in an attic, if you find one section of mold, do you normally treat the whole attic, or is it just spot treating the certain area?
It would be tested for, so you'd have to see where that mold is coming from, the source, and where the mold has traveled.
So Sharon, you've had personal story with mold, unfortunately.
Yes.
Is there something that you'd like to share with us so that maybe it could prevent somebody else having the same issues?
I guess the thing for me was that where I was exposed to mold, I suspected it, and it was for a number of years, and people around me were like, no, there's no mold here, and I was like, my carpet's wet, the walls are wet. No, and I wasn't
Wow.
educated in mold or knowing about mold. And as a result, I'm now dealing with the consequences of mold exposure.
Wow.
So better to be safe than sorry. That's really all I can say, is just trust your gut.
Well, that's heartbreaking. Are there some symptoms that people should look out for, or?
Well, I would say that what really brought it to mind for me was that I suddenly became very hazy in my office and didn't really remember where I was at all of a sudden.
Wow.
And thankfully my doctor was close by, and I don't know how I got there, because I really was
Wow.
affected. And it turned out that with multiple doctors, and you have to find somebody who really knows mold as far as a doctor, they determined that I was just highly affected by exposure to mold for a very long period of time.
And so are there treatments for mold once you're exposed?
There really aren't. I had breathing issues, so I was always wearing, and most of the time I do wear a mask still after 3 years. I'm still doing that. I see eye specialists. I mean, you really need to find doctors who are knowledgeable about mold too.
Wow.
But yeah, it can affect you in so many different ways.
That's tragic. So if there's one message that we could take away from your situation, what would you share?
I would say that when it comes to water, it only takes between 24 and 48 hours for it to turn into mold.
Wow.
And so if you suspect that you have water, don't necessarily go to your insurance agent right away. That was kind of my mistake.
Okay.
First things is get somebody, preferably somebody who's 24/7 availability, to come and check. Then you can call your insurance agent. But for me, I had to wait till over the weekend, and then by the time I got the insurance agent, and by the time they got people out, it was already
It was too late. So they can retroactively, if you have somebody fix it, then work with the insurance later, that
Yes.
happens? Okay.
Yes, yeah, have somebody at least come out and test it,
Okay,
so you know what you're dealing with, and you know your time frame.
got it. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing the information with us. Is there anything else you wanted to add, or?
I think that one of the things that really, made an impact on me is that it doesn't only affect me, the exposure to mold, it has affected me with my family and friends. I am at the point now where I have difficulty remembering names. I have always done artwork, and I have trouble sometimes with paintbrush
Wow.
working. I don't travel real far by myself because I'm afraid that I might not remember which street is where and that type
dear.
of thing. So just take it seriously, and better, again, I keep using it, but better safe than sorry. Check it out and then move forward from there.
Got it. So if people want to get some more information about mold, or now you're working for a new job that you've
Yes,
taken on,
that's
so
correct.
how can they be in touch with you?
Probably the best thing would be to reach out to Restoration One Chicago Northshore, and Kevin Ramirez is the owner of the franchise, and he covers the Northshore and into the city. And I would say call that number, which I have right here, thankfully. Call that number, and he's available. He actually is the one who answers the phone most of the time.
Right, yes.
Even during the night.
Yes, that's true.
And 847-241-1840 is the number. 847-241-1840. And he is really a great person to work with. He's kind, he's caring, and he really watches out for our clients.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.